Welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures, Daily Dose of Nature. I'm your host, Sunny Vanderstar. Today's topic is King of the Alps, the Alpine Ibex, and it will be presented by our fabulous NatHab expedition leader, Andrea Serena. Thank you so much for being here today, Andrea. Let's dive in.
Hello, Sunny. Thank you very much. And good afternoon, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here with you. I hope you will enjoy this webinar. My target is to make you fall in love with this fantastic animal. Fingers crossed. I will shortly switch up the webcam. I live in kind of remote area, so we want the connection to be stable. So pardon me. Let's start. All right, so let me tell you a bit about myself. I'm a nature guide since 2016, spending most of my time out there in nature isn't just part of my profession, but especially my biggest passion. Everything connected, especially with wildlife, always gave me the greatest emotions. So apart from my job, also big part of my hobbies are connected with nature, of course, such as nature and travel photography, outdoor sports, etc. This took me around the world for many years, where I had the pleasure to travel a lot and to work closely with wildlife and natural environments in remote areas, in animal rehabilitation centers, in wildlife parks, etc. I also am an environmental education teacher. In general, I work in very different places and environments. Right now, mostly in Italy, between the Venice Lagoon and the Dolomites, being also one of the official Dolomites National Park guides. And since 2019, I'm very happy to be NatHab expedition leader, leading with other amazing colleagues the Swiss Alps trips. But let's start with our fantastic animal. So let's see the pictures of this fantastic wild goat. So basically, the Alpine Ibex is a solid built species of wild goat. It is part of the Bovidae family and the Caprini subfamily. It is therefore related to, among others, the domestic goat, the chamois, the mouflon, and the muskox. You can see these beautiful animals here in this slide. So in the case of the ibex, the difference between male and female is fairly evident. The male has characteristics, bigger and wider horns that develop from a bony base on the skull, and in older males they can reach a length of 3.2 feet, so more or less a meter. Here you can see a perfect example of the difference between male and female horns, with this juvenile male on the right with already longer horns than the fully grown female that you can see on the left, which horns are clearly more slender, as you can see. Male horns have bigger rings, excuse me, not only to make the horn stronger and so better for the fighting, right? But also to impress females during the mating season. The horn stops to grow every year, more or less in November, when the temperatures in the Alps are extremely cold. Of course, the reason is to save energy that the animal needs to survive the winter. Well, as soon as the horn stopped to grow, a new ring appeared as well on the sides and at the back of the horn. And those are the rings that can tell us how old the animal is, by counting them, of course, starting from the base. Not only the horns, the males are in general bigger than the females. And here you can see the sizes that a fully grown male can reach. So with a shoulder height up to 3 feet, body length up to 5.2 feet, and horns length that can reach 3.2 feet, as we said before. The weight, more or less, can reach 285 pounds. So he's a big goat, let's say. But what about the habitat of this beautiful animal? So the ibis is the true master of the rocks, I would say. This animal is perfectly adapted to the alpine environment, and during summertime it can be found at the highest alpine altitudes, let's say generally between 7,500 feet and 10,500 feet, so between 2,300 meters and 3,200 meters. The hoofs of ibexes are very particular. They are in fact equipped with an internal part which is very rubbery and very soft, which allows them to have an optimal grip even on very, very steep cliffs, and even in winter. The external part of the hooves is different, is very rigid, and that gives balance to the animal. Sometimes the ibex may come down to the alpine grassland to, of course, to graze there, but always choosing areas with rock cliffs, with gorges, natural terraces, and steep channels in general, where the ibex can take refuge during the hours of rest. Let's keep in mind that to dominate the terrain that surrounds a mountain peak is a fundamental element of security for this animal. It needs defense strategy towards predators. During the winter, the ibexes remain at high altitude, generally between 5,200 feet and 9,200 feet, but they will seek out steep south-facing slopes. The interesting fact is that this is not so much because they prefer the milder temperatures there, but rather because the snow melts earlier on these slopes, so uncovering the dry grass, which is so important for the animal survival during this very severe time period. Sometimes it's very rare, but sometimes the males, only the males, enter the forest, usually large forest, and that because they are very much attracted by the shoots of these trees, but only if the forest is interrupted by rocky walls, and then sometimes they descend to the valley, to the Alpine Valley in spring, when the grass is growing back. The females, however, remain on the rocky slopes at higher altitudes for a good part of the year. So what can we say about the diet of the Alpine Ibex? Of course, this animal is 100% herbivore. They only eat vegetation. So shrubs, bushes, many types of different grasses. So grazing accounts for a significant part of their eating habits. Anyway, this diet is very poor in nutritional value, and this is the reason why the ibex spend most of the day eating. Usually they can eat up to 15 kilograms, so if I'm correct, around 30 pounds of grass per day. And what this animal really love is not much the grass, but something that the ibex need as well, and it's mineral salt that of course can't be found on the poor elements of its diet. So basically they search for these minerals, checking carefully between rocks, as you can see in the left picture with this nice male licking salt from that limestone. Sometimes these search for salts, so this characteristic way to feed become a real show, especially like you see here on those dams that were built in many places around the Alps, mostly during the 50s and the 60s, to generate extra electric power to sustain the economic boom. As you can see here, this amazing situation is probably one of the best to see if you want to understand why this mammal is considered one of the best highly skilled rock climber of the entire planet. Remember that the Ibex can run up slopes and almost vertical rocky walls at speed of up to 44 miles per hour. Anyway, what you see here, this is the Cingino Dam, by the way, in northwest Italian Alps, is done only by females and juveniles because the weight and length of the adult males' horns make these too difficult and especially too dangerous for the animal, for the males. Really, this is really something crazy. To see this is shocking, truly shocking, just amazing. So what about the behavior of the Alpine Ibex? Well, this animal is a social and gregarious species. The herds normally are unisexual, so with females that live with other females, but as well with, of course, the newborn, the kids, and males as well, but not older than 2 years. So these herds are made usually 10 to 20 individuals, so 10 to 20 females and young ibexes. Males create herds together, so males live with other males, but until they become very old. That's an important period of their life because they start to leave the rest of the herd and they start to live alone in a solitary way, and until they die, basically. Anyway, in general, there is a period, few weeks during the year when the herds become mixed, and is of course the mating period. Another interesting behavior, but typical of the female, is to live at higher altitudes than males, of course. And this is to keep, the reason is to keep their kids safe from potential predators. And that's kind of weird if we consider that they are not very scared of humans. Actually, they are very curious animals, and this was a problem for them, especially in the past, right? But anyway, in general, if lucky enough, in the Alps, is not impossible to have a very close encounter with these beautiful mammals. Obviously, we all know that there must always be a limit, no, of distance, and especially respect towards the animals, the wild animals. So in general, males love to fight, right? This is typical of mammals in general. And play fighting is the way the young males learn how to defend themselves, and then how to conquer the females once they are adults. A dominance hierarchy exists among males, and it's very interesting because in small populations, males know their place in the hierarchy, and that's based on the memories of their past encounters. But in large groups, where of course encounters with other ibexes, with strangers, let's say, are very, very common, the rank is based on the size of the horns. Okay, what can we say about its reproduction? So starting from November, usually November, adult males begin to show the first signs of sexual arousal. Sometimes they make very long journeys to join up with females groups, sometimes moving for days and many, many miles. During the mating period, that lasts more or less a month, 3 weeks, 4 weeks in general, and let's say between mid-December and mid-January, only the males of the highest social rank can reproduce. Okay, so the stronger, the one with longer horns, the most energetic ones. The courtship is very particular and relaxed, I will say. And regarding the male, it consists in showing itself to the partner, but in a very slow way, very gently, typically trying not to show to the female the horns, to do not scare the female. And you can see this behavior here in this slide, in these two different pictures. Very, very interesting and kind of unique. The gestation lasts more or less 5.5 months, and between end of May and mid-June, the females give birth to only one kid. Sometimes two, but very, very rarely two. We know the key to survive, especially for the wild mammals, is to save energy. This is very typical, very common in thousands and thousands of species. Already shortly after birth, the newborn is able to follow its mother, even in the most inaccessible areas. And that's very, very impressive to see, very impressive. Just like after 1 hour, they are amazing climber, very, very impressive and beautiful to spot. So let's talk about their history and their distribution in the Alps. So the Ibex population was very consistent in the Alps until the beginning of the 17th century. Then, unfortunately, with the arrival of firearms, the Ibex, the Alpine Ibex, began its decline, caused mostly by poaching. So in the 18th century, the Ibex was completely eradicated in Switzerland and in Germany. And a century later, also in Austria and northeast Italy. You can see clearly here in these pictures how massive was the hunting towards this animal. To give you an idea of how intense the ibex hunting was, I show you these photos of a small castle called Sarre Castle. Here we are in Aosta Valley, so Western Alps, in Italy, close to the French border. So the castle was owned by the royal family at that time, and inside there are around 1,000 pairs of ibex horns. The shocking thing is that all of these horns, all of these ibexes were killed by one single person, King Vittorio Emanuele II. As you can see, the castle is fully covered by animals' horns, mostly Alpine Ibex, but also chamois, roe deer, red deer, and so on. This is tremendous, but also very curious, because this man, a few years later, was the one who saved the ibex from extinction. And we see how. Okay. So, fortunately, in 1821, the Savoy family, so the owners of much of the Western Alpine lands at that time, placed the last 100 surviving ibexes, 100 surviving ibexes, under restricted protection. There was a total of 30 males, 35 females, and 35 juveniles. Even more important was the decision taken in 1854 by Vittorio Emanuele II, who would shortly after become the king of the first united Italy. Well, Vittorio Emanuele decided to create a private hunting reserve around the Gran Paradiso Massif in the Western Italian Alps, together with a private armed corps made of 50 soldiers. And that was exclusively responsible, this little army, let's say, for the defense of the remaining ibexes. And this was what saved these beautiful species from extinction. Sadly, this reminds us what is happening also today, in many places around the world. But I think about Africa, for example, where we all know the last white rhinos, for example, are monitored on site by park rangers, no? So starting from 1854, the Alpine Ibex population began to grow exponentially, reaching a bit more than 3,000 individuals in 1914, at the beginning of World War I. Here you can see part of those ibexes in this historical picture taken around the beginning of the 20th century. But even better news in 1922, when the King of Italy decided to make his personal Gran Paradiso Reserve the first Italian national park. And one of the first national park in Europe, the fourth, I think. So the Gran Paradiso National Park soon became the true kingdom of the king of the Alps, the Alpine Ibex. More in general, this area is truly beautiful, very wild, amazing environments, very interesting wildlife, super interesting vegetation, high class botanic. But you know, it's not all about trekking, hiking, climbing. The area is beautiful also to relax, and food is very good. And the region there, Valle d'Aosta, is just next to Piedmont, so it's not that difficult to find very good wine as well. Just let me say that. So in those years, the interest from other alpine countries for the Alpine Ibex started to increase. And just imagine that the Swiss government, with the intention of bringing the Ibex into the Swiss National Park, hired poachers who were secretly sent across the Italian border with the aim of stealing ibexes to then bring them back to Switzerland to, of course, to be raised and then released. Illegal, yes, but it worked. And you can see here in this slide, there are some interesting pictures of those historical moments, those very first release of Alpine Ibexes in the Swiss National Park, which is a very beautiful park that yeah, we should all see at least once. Very nice area, very wild, and great number of wildlife, nice landscape, very nice place. However, few years later, the Ibex had to face new problems. Our poor Alpine Ibex. When in 1945, that's the time the population collapsed again, and imagine it went down again to more or less 400 individuals, 400 animals. Why? It was World War II. People were starving, and the need of meat almost canceled again this animal from the Alps. But after the end of the war, the Ibex population began to grow again, and since then never stopped growing. So at least a good news. Let's continue. We mentioned Ibex meat before, and speaking of Ibex meat, well, we have to remember that for thousands and thousands of years in the Alps, this animal, of course, together with other ungulates, with deers, wild boars, and so on, but especially the Alpine Ibex has provided precious proteins to the population for thousands of years. And for example, I would like to mention what is perhaps the most famous man in the Alpine history, which is not Reinhold Messner, the climber, but is Otzi, the iceman of the Similaun Glacier, best known as the Similaun Mame. So Otzi is the oldest man ever found intact. Of course, some mummies around the world are older, but we know that their brains and internal organs were removed in the mummification process, right? So since Otzi was so well preserved in the glacial ice, he has provided scientists and researchers the best specimen to date for a man over 5,000 years old, discovering that Otzi, the Iceman, had as last meal goat bacon. So the analysis of the 5,300 years old mammoth stomach contents shows Otzi ate dry cured meat from an Alpine Ibex as his very last meal. As well, very interesting, is the fact that Otzi is the world's oldest Lyme disease patient. And as we know, Lyme disease comes from ticks of wild ungulates. So again and again, ibex and man, ibex and man. Today, the entire population of the Alpine Ibex counts around 53,000 ibexes, divided approximately into 150, 160 separated colonies. Here you can see this distribution of the species today. Excuse me. With the exception of the Gran Paradiso National Park ibex population, all the others are the result of reintroduction. So this is the case of France, Switzerland, Austria, and Germany, or new introductions. So in Slovenia, and few also in Bulgaria. But today, what are the problems that this fantastic animal is facing, and what our partner WWF is telling us about the situation of this incredible mammal? So WWF is studying from close this animal, and recently new reports was made by the Worldwide Fund for Nature. The Alpine Ibex, together with other alpine species such as the rock ptarmigan and the edelweiss, you can see here, are icons of the alpine biodiversity threatened by the climate change, especially these species. All these species are facing a dramatic situation, especially the ibex. So as temperatures rise, the growing season in mountain areas starts earlier and earlier, and so does the high altitude pastures. Of course, which cannot offer the ibex kids the suitable forage for their diet, that critical moment of the weaning. So dramatic is the number connected to this research, like their survival has dropped from the 50% of the 1980s to 25% today. What this means? It means that every 10 newborns we lose between 7 and 8 animals. And this is dramatic. Then, in recent years, the increasingly torrid summer season have also created, of course, suffering for the adult ibexes, who are forced to reach higher altitudes in search of cooler temperatures. so seeking new habitats for their survival. Important to know, ibexes cannot tolerate high temperature as they lack sweat glands. Anyway, this phenomenon is described by zoologists as stairway to heaven, just like the Led Zeppelin song. And it represents a real migration to higher altitudes to seek the cold. But in these areas, however, there is a shortage of food, and it is estimated by WWF that the ibex territory could be reduced by a third of its current size, which is another real drama. But apart from the problems resulting from the huge problems resulting from the climate change, what are the natural enemies of this animal? Let's say being an exceptional climber, it manages to defend itself very well from potential natural predators such as the wolf and the lynx, which are incapable to hunt the ibex on the most vertical walls and only rarely manage to catch a kid or a newborn. In fact, this animal, when faced with danger, does not flee far, but takes refuge on the rocky walls where it feels safe. However, this not make it safe from all the predators, and surely not from the golden eagle, which is perhaps the most fearsome and efficient predator in the Alps. Pardon me the maybe the incorrect word, but the golden eagle is probably the true alpine killer. It's just amazing. This bird has an amazing biology. It's just a shocking bird. Anyway, here we can also see an incredible picture. Sorry for the quality, but is not a shot that a photographer can take every day. But anyway, here we can admire a golden eagle lifting a juvenile ibex, and we can, of course, imagine what is happening after this moment, right? So the ibex dropping on the rocks, the rocks below to kill him, and then going down to the carcass and start to hit the prey. Cruel, but just amazing to see. Well, an hunter who has become active again towards the ibex is the most dangerous one, and who has almost made it extinct forever, of course, the human being. What's the situation today in the Alps regarding ibex hunting? Well, the hunting is forbidden in some countries, in few countries, such as Italy, France, and Germany, while in other countries, such as Switzerland, Austria, and Slovenia, selective killing and related price list is permitted. So now let's forget about sad things and let's travel together around the world, at least around the old world, and let's go to discover what's the situation about the ibex around these continents. So the ibex genus is rich in species and in subspecies as well. So let's see together which are the most famous species and where we can find them. So as you can see, in Western Europe, there are two species. So of course, the Alpine Ibex and also the Iberian Ibex that today we can find only in Spain. It was an animal that was consistent also in Portugal, in the French Pyrenees, but it was killed, extinct. They are trying with some breeding program to reintroduce the Iberian Ibex in some areas, but until now it's not working. So finger crossed for the future of these beautiful species. Then Eastern Europe, but also Middle East and Asia as well, we can find the bezoar. This is a very, very, very interesting species because many naturalists agree that this animal can be considered the progenitor of the domestic goat we all see around the planet today. No? Also found in the Middle East, but as well in Northeast Africa, is the Nubian Ibex. Beautiful. Which is the ibex that best adapts to arid climates and arid environments. Let's fly to Central Asia, mostly between Afghanistan and Pakistan, where we find the biggest ibex species, the amazing markhor, beautiful. And then another species found in Central Asia is the Siberian Ibex, which is by far the most widely distributed species of the genus Capra, living in a huge area and in at least 8 different Asian countries, including India, Russia, Mongolia, and China. What about the ibex and natural habitat adventure? Let's see. So, is there any place around the European Alps where, together with NetApp, we had the chance to admire these amazing animals? Yes, we did several times during our lovely NetApp trips to Switzerland. A trip called Wild Switzerland that right now is out of the catalog at the moment, but that might be on the program again in the next future. The area where our guest had the closest encounter with the Alpine Ibex was the beautiful mountain area around the Gorner Glacier that you can see on the right. Simply an amazing, beautiful body of ice that looks to the Matterhorn, which is one of the most photographed mountains in the world, beautiful mountain. And of course, you see the Matterhorn on the left pictures here in this slide. With NetApp, we had up there the incredible privilege to sleep at the hotel and astronomical observatory of Gornergrat, having the chance, usually at sunset, but also at sunrise, to see several ibexes coming very close to us, or as well in the surrounding areas where we had the chance to admire big herds of these beautiful wild goats while running free through the alpine meadows and the rocks. a truly a pleasure, a privilege, a beautiful, beautiful species. Well, thank you all. I hope you found this animal and this webinar interesting. If you have any question, here I am, and thank you.
Andrea, thank you so much. I learned a lot, and there are lots of questions ready for you, but I just want to remind everybody that they can submit their questions via the questions field in the control panel. So can you talk a little bit about natural predators for the ibex? Are there any, or is it just man?
Yes, so let's keep in mind that for carnivore mammal is very difficult and almost impossible to catch an ibex in its environment. So before we mentioned the lynx, the wolves, and we said that, yes, sometimes, especially during summertime when you know, the juveniles go down to graze, they lose altitude, sometimes they lose, you know, the herds, and that's the time sometimes when especially the wolves go for them. Then, but only regarding kids and newborns, sometimes the European red fox go up to higher altitude to try to catch a newborn. But again, this is very rare. For sure, the golden eagle is the animal that can manage to feed on this animal more often. Sometimes, but extremely rare, other birds of prey try to catch a newborn, but is very rare. Until last century, it was believed that, for example, the bearded vulture or the Eurasian griffin were active hunters towards these species, but it isn't true. So I will say golden eagle, sometimes wolves, rarely red fox, and as well the Eurasian lynx. Apart from those fantastic species, the biggest problem, as always, is the Homo sapiens sapiens, and let me say sometimes not that sapiens.
I hear ya. Do they ever fall from these amazing perches? Have you ever seen that or heard reports?
I did not an Alpine Ibex, but a chamois.
So they're pretty, yeah, go ahead.
It's not because they fail or, you know, it's very rare. They are, is a strange and bad word to say, but they are basically machines up there. But what is happening in the Alps? They are falling down. So they fell down only in case they are walking or passing through unstable rocks. So sometimes it happens, and so yeah, it's possible, but again, very rarely. A big problem is the avalanche. The snow avalanche kill many of them. And again, due to climate change, this is happening more often. But yeah, an ibex, especially an adult, fit, energetic adult, never fail.
Is vegetation available for them during the winter months? And if so, what vegetation?
During winter, they excavate. They dig holes in the snow of course, where the sun help them a bit melting the snow on the southern slopes, they can dig even 2-3 feet, and they just need some old dry grass. So basically, they feed on that almost for 3, 4, sometimes 5 months.
Do ibex lose their horns annually and then regrow them the next year, or are they permanent and just continue to grow annually?
No, they don't. The horns are permanent. They are hollow and made up of horny covering of the bones. So horns, the ones at least belonging to bovids, are structures made of keratin. So a protein also present in our hair and nails, no? And that cover the bone structure attached to the skull. This is all to create a permanent structure that this animal needs 12 months a year.
Do the Eurasian wolf and lynx have specialized hooves like the Alpine Ibex to navigate the high and rocky altitudes?
Sorry, can you repeat?
Sure. Do the Eurasian wolf and lynx have specialized hooves like the Alpine Ibex to navigate the high and rocky altitudes?
No, they don't. I mean, they can run almost everywhere, but if we consider the skills of this mammal, there's no way for predators to walk in the same path this animal take to refuge. Is impossible. Is impossible.
Okay. Well, that's the last question we have time for today. So I'd like to hand it back to you for closing comments.
Well, I would like to thank you again. It's very nice to have you here. We started with these webinars back in 2020 with COVID, and it's very, very nice to see that we are continuing to do this, even if we are fortunately all free again and able to travel around the world. And so, yeah, it's very, very nice to participate and to be here with you. Regarding the Ibex, this is truly a jewel. I hope you all will have a chance to see this animal in the wild. I was reading the other day that it was even introduced in the United States, of course, in private hunting reserve. And that was curious. I didn't know that. But anyway, I wait you here in the Alps, and hopefully one day we all go to spot this incredible animal, which evolution just is shocking us every day. So thank you to the Ibex. Thank you to our fantastic guests to be here with us today. Thank you.
And I want to thank you, Andrea. That was a fascinating presentation, and we really appreciate you bringing your knowledge and passion to these webinars. I also want to thank everybody who tuned in. Please join us again tomorrow for our next Daily Dose of Nature. You can check out this week's lineup, including registration links, on our website at nathab.com/webinars. We did record today's presentation, and we will have the replay available on our website soon. With that, we'll conclude the webinar. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye. Thank you very much. Bye, Sunny. Bye, everyone.
Bye.